There is a clock that doesn't measure time. It doesn't show hours. But how close we are to the end. Right now. It's closer than ever before. But what's even more disturbing is not what the clock shows, but who controls it, who decides, how much time we have left, and what do they base it on when they move it closer to midnight. In this video we're going to uncover the truth behind the Doomsday Clock, the people in the shadows who adjust it, and why the world seems to be moving closer to the point of no return. "90 seconds. That's all that separates humanity from midnight. A number so small. It almost doesn't feel real. But this isn't a movie scenario. This is the reality we are living in right now. The Doomsday Clock doesn't measure ordinary time. It doesn't count hours, minutes, or days. It measures something far more dangerous. How close humanity is to its own destruction. The clock was created in 1947, after the world witnessed for the first time what true destructive power looks like. After Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the scientists who helped develop nuclear weapons realized something terrifying. That humanity had created something it could no longer fully control. And that's how this clock was born. Not as a prediction, but as a warning. A signal that the world was moving toward a dangerous point. Over the years, the hands of the clock have moved forward and backward, depending on how stable or unstable the world became. During the Cold War, when tensions between global powers were at their peak, the clock reached just 2 minutes to midnight. But even then, humanity was not as close as it is today. Because what makes the current situation different is not just one threat. It's the fact that all threats exist at the same time. Conflicts that are no longer local, but can escalate into global crises within moments. Weapons more advanced than ever before, capable of destroying in minutes what took decades to build. Technologies like artificial intelligence, evolving faster than our ability to fully control them. And a world that is becoming more divided, where trust between nations is constantly declining. All of this creates a fragile balance. A balance that can be broken at any moment. And this is exactly what the Doomsday Clock reflects. 90 seconds to midnight does not mean the end will come tomorrow. It means we are living in a time where the risk has never been greater. But perhaps the most disturbing part is that most people go on with their lives as if nothing has changed, unaware of how fragile everything has become. Because the truth is simple. You don't need a world war for things to spiral out of control. All it takes is one wrong decision, one moment, one conflict that goes too far. And from that point, there's no way back. The clock doesn't predict the future, but it tells us one thing very clearly, that we are getting closer to a limit. And the question is no longer whether the world is changing, but how far it can go before it's too late. But if this clock isn't about time, then it's about power. The power to decide how close the world is to the end. And that raises an uncomfortable question. Who actually holds that power? Who decides how much time we have left? Every year, without most people even knowing, a small group of individuals comes together. Not in front of cameras, not in public view, but away from the noise, where decisions are not shaped by opinions, but by interpretation. These individuals are part of the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. Officially, they are experts, scientists, analysts, people who study global risk. But what they do goes beyond simple analysis, because at the end of these meetings, they make a decision, a single decision, that reflects the state of the entire world. They move the hands of the clock closer or further away from midnight. But this is where things become unclear. There is no exact formula, no perfect system, No absolute truth. There are only people looking at the world and deciding how dangerous it has become. And maybe that's the most disturbing part, because we are not talking about a machine. We are not talking about an automated system. We are talking about perception, about interpretation, about human judgment, in a world that is becoming harder and harder to understand. And that leads to a question no one can really answer. What if these people are seeing things that the rest of the world hasn't seen yet? Because sometimes the biggest changes don't happen in plain sight. They don't make headlines. They are not openly discussed. But they exist. In political decisions. In technologies evolving in silence. In tensions rising. Without everyone noticing. And maybe those are the things that move the hands of the clock. Not just what we know, but what we don't know yet. Because in the end, the clock itself is not the most dangerous thing. The real danger is that there are people watching it and coming to the conclusion that time is not on our side. If these people are moving the hands of the clock, then there must be a real reason. Not rumors, not theories, but real factors pointing to a growing risk. So what are they actually seeing? The first answer is the most obvious and the most dangerous: global conflict. We are no longer talking about isolated wars, but about tensions that can escalate between major powers. In moments, the world today doesn't operate on stable balance anymore. One wrong decision can trigger a chain reaction, impossible to stop. And behind these conflicts, there is something even more dangerous: weapons. Not just conventional weapons, but systems capable of destroying entire cities within minutes. Technology that hasn't just evolved, but has outpaced our ability to fully control its consequences. But maybe the most concerning factor is not what we can see, it's what is just beginning to take shape. Artificial intelligence, a system created by humans that learns, adapts, and evolves constantly. A technology with the power to reshape everything, from economies to security to decision-making itself. The problem is not that it exists. The problem is that it's evolving faster than the rules meant to control it. And that's where the real risk begins. Because when technology moves beyond control, the consequences are no longer predictable. But even that is not the full picture. Because the world is not facing just one type of crisis. Everything is happening at the same time. Economic instability, political tension, a growing lack of trust between nations, a global system becoming more fragile with each passing year. And that leads to the real question. Not whether these risks exist, but how close they are to becoming reality. Because sometimes the world doesn't change through one major event, but through accumulation. Small tensions, building over time, decisions that seem insignificant, adding up, until eventually, everything reaches a breaking point. And that is exactly what the Doomsday Clock reflects. Not one single threat, but a world where all threats exist at once, and are becoming harder to control. And maybe that's what they are seeing. Not just what is visible, but where all of this is heading. Because sometimes, the most dangerous thing is not the present, but what comes next. But what if the Doomsday Clock is not just a warning, but something more? Something that doesn't just reflect reality, but shapes the way we see it. Because every time the hands move closer to midnight, it's not just a symbol that changes. Our perception of the world changes. A subtle feeling that things are slipping out of control, that we are moving towards something inevitable. But what does midnight really mean? There is no exact answer. There is no specific moment when the world simply stops. Midnight is not a time. It's a point. A point where balance disappears, where decisions can no longer be undone. A point where a single action can change everything. A conflict that escalates too far. A technology that moves beyond control. A chain reaction that can no longer be stopped. And maybe that is the true meaning of the clock. The truth is, we don't know how much time we have left. And maybe we were never meant to know. But one thing is certain. The clock doesn't stop, and neither does the world. So the question remains, when it reaches midnight, will we be ready, or will it already be too late? For all of us, if you want to see beyond what you're being shown, and understand what's really hidden beneath the surface, subscribe. The Hidden Order doesn't show the world as it is, but as it could become.